According to reports, WWE may not be picked up by Fox for Friday Night SmackDown in the media rights negotiations later on this year. Speaking of Fox, their CEO has also commented on possible WWE sale discussions and if they could purchase the company. What are the plans for Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus? We've got details on that. Ronda Rousey has suffered a hairline fracture on the road to WrestleMania. Will she be cleared in time to compete on the Showcase of the Immortals? Vince McMahon was backstage at Raw this week. We've got more details on that. Ray is leaving WWE, and we've got an update on details surrounding her exit from the company. WWE and Australia, the government of Australia, are reportedly in negotiations to host a stadium show possibly later this year. WWE loses a lawsuit and is forced to pay damages. Alexa Bliss, we've got an update on her hiatus from WWE. Also, more details on WWE looking to legalize gambling on the results of their matches. A major change to the Intercontinental Championship #1 contender match tonight live on Friday Night SmackDown. Mick Foley reveals he has been asked to induct someone into the Hall of Fame later on next month. Johnny Gargano comments on his stand and deliver match against Grayson Waller. And we have the ratings for this week's edition of NXT Roadblock. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. We have to start off talking about possibly SmackDown not being on Fox for too much longer. Now, there is sort of two parts to this one. Now, the first part regards Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch. He has commented on the company's current relationship with WWE amid WWE sale rumors, with WWE appearing to be preparing for a sale, exploring the strategic alternatives. Some have speculated that Fox may be interested in acquiring the company. Fox has notably been the home of Friday Night SmackDown since October 2019. Speaking at a Morgan Stanley Investors Conference, Murdoch stated that Fox hasn't talked to WWE about renewing TV rights just yet, but noted that they're focused on a rights renewal. Sharing his hopes for a potential buyer of WWE, Murdoch said, quote, "They have been great partners. They've been great partners throughout our relationship. If they ultimately sell the business, I hope the acquirer will be as great as they have been. I hope the management team stays intact there. They've done a tremendous job. From a rights point of view, we're focused on the rights renewal. We haven't engaged with them on the rights yet. We're ready to engage with them when they ask and when they're ready. Ultimately, our appetite for renewal depends on what happens with the rest of our sports portfolio." Now, when it comes to possibly them renewing SmackDown or not, according to some reports or some speculation or some analysis, maybe that's the best word there, apparently maybe Fox is against renewing SmackDown. Dave Meltzer writes in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week, Wells Fargo Securities has predicted that Fox will not renew SmackDown, even giving it finishing #1 most weeks in 18 to 49. The listed value of SmackDown right now through all channels as $1.18 or $183.5 million, so Fox is overpaying for it, and the idea WWE would be looking for a substantial rights increase. They list the raw value at $259.5 million, which is slightly less than what USA is paying for it. And of course, who the company sells to, if it sells, changes so much about the media rights negotiations, particularly if Saudi Arabia gets the company. They also said that maybe there would be a deal where Fox would continue to broadcast it on its network, but also air on one of its streaming services, with the idea that paying similar numbers but getting live streaming rights may lead them to get them to try and bid for it. The key is that if Fox got the streaming rights to SmackDown, then Peacock couldn't put the shows up at any point in time. Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch spoke at the Morgan Stanley Tech Media and Telecom Conference and was asked about it, as I just mentioned, talking about them being great partners, saying they've done a tremendous job, but it will depend on the sports portfolio. So it's quite interesting that the Fox CEO saying, well, we haven't even started the negotiations just yet, but Wells Fargo Securities is predicting that Fox will not renew SmackDown despite it finishing #1 in the 18 to 49 on most weeks in terms of broadcast primetime, and with the ratings and viewership going up over the last year or so with the creative surge under Paul Triple H Levesque. But at the same time, if something can be negotiated when it comes to the streaming rights for SmackDown, that might change. However, that could impact WWE's relationship with NBC Universal and Peacock too. So a lot to play for SmackDown and WWE when it comes to the Fox possible media rights negotiations. Now, what is going to happen with Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus? Well, we might have an update on how the long-term storyline is going to play out for this one. Now, have long-term WWE storyline plans been revealed for Becky Lynch to head into a legendary feud between WrestleMania and SummerSlam? Now, an exciting scoop has been shared that, if true, would set up a major program between Becky Lynch and a Hall of Famer heading into SummerSlam later on this year. According to a scoop from WRKD Wrestling on Twitter, there might be a legendary future feud coming Becky Lynch's way. A tweet from the account said, quote, "The long-term plan as of this moment is that Trish Stratus will turn heel and work a program with Becky Lynch through SummerSlam." Now, it's worth mentioning that so far, other than WWE changing plans late before showtime, as confirmed by Fightful's reporting about said changes, the WRKD account has been accurate regarding the rest of their Trish Stratus scoops. Becky Lynch's currently announced plans for WrestleMania 39 feature teaming up with Trish and her fellow Women's Tag Team Champion partner Lita to take on Bayley, Io Sky, and Dakota Kai of Damage Control. But according to those plans, Trish Stratus will be turning heel and will face off against Becky Lynch possibly in SummerSlam. We had heard that this program was going to be a long-term program and a program that Trish has wanted to do for a while. So it looks like we are finally going to get that Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus match, but also we're going to get a Trish Stratus heel turn too. Now, speaking of Becky Lynch, WrestleMania, and the women's division, we've got an update on Ronda Rousey's injury and her status for WrestleMania. And according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Rousey has suffered a hairline fracture. Now, he spoke about this in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, talking that Bayley and Dakota Kai and Io Sky versus Lita, Trish Stratus, and Becky Lynch has been announced for WrestleMania. This does not preclude Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey challenging for the women's tag team titles. As of right now, both matches are scheduled, and the Women's Tag Team Champions, whoever they end up being, it was Kai and Sky originally, will work both nights. If Rousey isn't able to wrestle by that weekend, obviously that tag title match won't be taking place. But as of midweek, the belief was she would be wrestling on the show. Rousey has a legit injury, believed to be a hairline fracture. She aggravated the injury recently in training enough to where they are pulling her from action a little, but she's still planning on wrestling in a tag team title match at WrestleMania. Of course, how this happened for television purposes, they did an angle on SmackDown last week where Tegan Nox injured her arm. It was basically a phantom attack like they do when someone is really injured and they're just to show them screaming in pain. They had been taking care of her in her recent matches and her opponents since her latest return, and had been told about the injury and to be careful not to hurt her any worse. And she was limited in what she could do. So the reason she was smaller in the arms and shoulders and looked lighter when she came back from a few weeks off was because she was limited in her training as well. It was notable that they had Nox do an injury angle and then had Baszler destroy Nox in the match, rather than them doing an angle with someone who they protect until Rousey got her revenge on. But since Rousey is a heel, that traditional dynamic doesn't work as well. She came to the ring with Baszler and used her black belt for a sling on the arm. So Rousey does have a legitimate injury, but is expected to be okay and back in time for WrestleMania later on next month. Now, Vince McMahon, one of the biggest stories this week was that Vince McMahon was backstage on Monday Night Raw and sitting at the gorilla position all night. Allegedly, he was there to visit John Cena. But Dave Meltzer has opened up more in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, saying Vince McMahon was at the March 4th tapings in Boston. The story that was told to everyone was that he was there to visit with Cena, and that was part of the story. But he stayed for the show and was in gorilla all night, but Paul Levesque was the one barking orders and producing the show. Levesque is the guy in charge of creative, but the idea Vince has no involvement at all likely isn't the case. Levesque himself has said that why not take input from Vince with all of his knowledge and experience. People looking for Vince fingerprints, like the mention of Gable as being short or ugly, or running down Johnny Gargano for being short and a comic book fan, can find them. But while Levesque is more into the wrestling aspect of the presentation, Vince is his mentor, and much of Vince's ideas are the DNA of the company's mindset to begin with. A photo surfaced of him being there, and he's now got a mustache. Now, a photo has not emerged of him being there. That is false. All of the pictures that have emerged of Vince McMahon backstage at Raw have been photoshopped or doctors. We haven't seen an official image or even a leaked image of Vince McMahon and the new mustache. Of course, if we do, we'll show it here on the channel, but there hasn't been one as of right now. Now, a big story this week has been the exit of Saray from WWE, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is providing a lot more details regarding her exit. Of course, it was initially reported by Tokyo Sports. They reported that Saray was leaving the company. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select was able to confirm the report, including that Saray has bookings elsewhere. However, WWE, as of right now, has yet to comment to the numerous inquiries about her in an official capacity. Since word emerged that she'd be leaving WWE imminently, Fightful has learned more. They have been told that the beginning of the end was actually in early 2022, when many of her biggest supporters were let go from NXT. Sources within the brand said that she never factored into a constant or major creative fashion after that. They have also been told by the spring of 2022 that the writing was on the wall. William Regal's departure was one that many pointed to as a turning point. Those who frequent the WWE Performance Center said that she hadn't been around in ages and weren't given any answers when they'd ask about her. It was widely accepted within the company that the creative team the creative given to her was outright bad. Those within the company said that Saray took great pride in helping Tiffany Stratton along during their short feud and seemed to think that a lot of the up-and-coming talent. Though there was a language barrier, they have heard no issues in her dealing with anyone and only heard positive things about her from others at the Performance Center. As I mentioned, WWE still not confirmed things officially, but Fightful have been told her work with them is effectively done. So certainly she is gone, and it was bad creative. I mean, the creative that she was given about her changing base, it did not work out at all. Now, this is quite an interesting one. We've seen recently, haven't we, lots of WWE Premium Live events scheduled for outside the continental United States. Backlash is at Puerto Rico in May. We've got Money in the Bank in July. We've got King and Queen of the Ring in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And we could be getting another Premium Live event outside of the continental United States. It's been reported by Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter that WWE is negotiating with Australia. Meltzer writes, quote, "The state government of Western Australia is negotiating with WWE to run a major stadium show. This would be similar to when the city of Melbourne made a deal with WWE to twice run stadium shows, one of which was a pay-per-view show. The likely city would be Perth, which recently hosted a UFC show. And many of the UFC shows outside of the United States are basically local governments bringing in UFC for tourism or other reasons. Of course, that stadium show was Super Showdown in Melbourne in 2018. As I mentioned prior to that, there was actually a live event too. But this could be another premium live event outside of the US as WWE is looking to go more to this model, considering they don't have to worry about pay-per-view buys and the streaming numbers are already high and they've already got the money from NBC Universal regarding the Peacock service. And it looks like they could be going to Australia. Now, in terms of a date, in terms of an event or anything like that, that hasn't been given any details as of right now. But certainly, if you're a WWE fan or a pro wrestling fan in Australia, keep an eye out because WWE could be hosting a major stadium event near you very soon. Now, WWE, there's always lawsuits involving that company, isn't there? But WWE has been ordered to pay over $330,000 in damages over a traffic accident lawsuit. As previously reported, WWE went to trial over a traffic accident lawsuit this past week. The jury trial took place in the Florida Middle District Court regarding the lawsuit against WWE over a 2019 traffic accident in Tampa. The lawsuit was filed by Jackson Parsons, who was injured in the accident. The jury in question ultimately sided with the plaintiff, Parsons, and ruled that WWE must pay $331,800 to Jackson. The amount to be paid is a percentage based on their own level of negligence in the accident. The jury decided that Jackson held 65% of the negligence, while WWE was responsible for 35%. The lawsuit was originally filed in June 2021, with the incident allegedly taking place on July 2019. Parsons alleged a van rented by WWE that was being driven by a WWE employee and prop expert Gayton Thomas. The filing indicates that Thomas was on the job at the time and was involved in a motor vehicle accident with Parsons, who was riding a bicycle. In the lawsuit, Parsons claimed he suffered physical injuries, pain and suffering, disability, and the inability and loss of the capacity to lead and enjoy normal life, inconvenience, disfigurement, scarring, and mental anguish. He also cited he suffered physical injuries, pain and suffering, disability, and as I mentioned, the mental anguish. Meanwhile, Parsons said that his injuries and suffering are permanent. He also claimed he has incurred past medical expenses and will incur future medical expenses on account of the motor vehicle incident. Parsons was seeking $76,500 for pain and suffering, mental anguish and inconvenience, as well as $401,500 for future pain and suffering. The case was officially closed on Tuesday, March 7th. So WWE having to pay the money regarding that lawsuit. Now, some people have been asking about what's going on with Alexa Bliss, and the answer is we don't really know. According to Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, in a very, very, very short note, he just says, quote, "Bliss is on another hiatus for a while," end quote. That's about it. So we don't know. We do know that we last saw her at the Royal Rumble, and she had that segment with Uncle Howdy, but as of right now, Alexa Bliss is nowhere to be seen and currently on hiatus. Now, one of the biggest stories this week as well has been WWE's attempt to legalize gambling on the results of their matches. And WWE has been registered with the Indiana Gaming Commission. As previously reported, CNBC reported that WWE was currently in talks with state gambling regulators in Colorado and Michigan to legalize betting on high-profile matches in the company. CNBC has provided an update on their article noting that WWE have already registered with the Indiana Gaming Commission. The article also notes that they have received word from the Colorado Division of Gaming for an update. The statement reads, quote, "The Colorado Division of Gaming told CNBC it is not currently considering and has not considered allowing sports betting wagers on WWE matches. A spokesperson noted Colorado currently has a statute prohibiting wagers on events with fixed or predicted outcomes, including the Academy Awards. WWE's attempt to legalize betting on their matches would provide the company with a major change, as winners would be kept secret from the wrestlers until mere hours before the bouts if the talk succeeded." Now, this was expanded upon by Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week, writing, quote, "The key to prevent a breach is that nobody will be allowed to know the results of the matches until the books close just hours before the matches. WWE will be working with Ernst & Young to keep a tight lid on match results so they don't leak out to fans with connections or talent and allow them to make surefire winning bets. The idea is for WWE to work with gambling sites with the idea of allowing national betting on major matches. The idea is that allowing betting will lead to more interest and coverage of the big matches that will make up for the writers and top talent being in the dark as to their long-term programs. In addition, Ernst & Young would have to get those results well ahead of time to not allow manipulation of the results based on betting patterns, meaning that if something got hot and you wanted to change the direction or bet the big show result, you wouldn't do so. The description from those who would be affected by this is that it was mind-blowing such a thing was being talked about seriously. WWE is telling regulators that they will make sure nobody will know the results of the matches ahead of time and no chance the results would leak to the gambling public. Ernst & Young works with award shows to make sure the results from those shows are kept secret until they are announced on the air." It does feel kind of crazy, doesn't it, that they're saying that the results won't leak where everything leaks in pro wrestling nowadays, but we'll have to wait and see. This certainly seems like WWE is really seriously pursuing it, and they've got things through in the past that didn't seem possible previously, so anything indeed is possible. Now, SmackDown is tonight live on Fox, and we do know one big match for the show is going to have WrestleMania implications, but one person has actually been removed from the match. WWE has announced a major change to the Intercontinental Championship #1 contenders match on tonight's edition of SmackDown. Several stars have announced their intention to get a shot at Gunther's Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 39. The company announced last week there would be a 5-way bout between Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, LA Knight, Kofi Kingston and Karrion Kross for this week's edition of the show. The winner would move on to face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. But as previously reported, Kofi Kingston suffered an arm injury that could keep him out of action for 2 to 8 months. On Thursday, WWE announced that Kingston will be replaced in the #1 contenders match by his New Day teammate Xavier Woods on tonight's edition of the Blue Brand. Now, he's actually commented on this as well, Xavier Woods. He said, quote, "In all my time on the main roster, I have never once had a match where a singles title was on the line. I've beaten men while they've held world and universal championships. I even won King of the Ring, still no shot. Tomorrow, I do everything I can to get one." So Xavier Woods is replacing Kofi Kingston. It's been heavily rumored that Drew McIntyre or Sheamus will be winning that one, but anything's possible. You know, Kofi Mania was a thing. Maybe Xavier Mania might be the next. Now, what's going on with the Hall of Fame? Well, by all accounts, there is still a Hall of Fame this year. We still haven't had any inductees or anything like that. But Mick Foley says he has been asked to induct someone at the Hall of Fame. Now, the 2023 Hall of Fame ceremony is scheduled to take place on Friday, March 31st. Despite just being 3 weeks away from WrestleMania weekend, no inductees have been announced as of right now. On the latest episode of Foley is Pod, Mick Foley has revealed that there are plans for inductees, and he has been asked to induct someone on this year's ceremony. He stated, quote, "I received a text message from someone I've had no contact with in a while, years and years, asking if I would induct them into the Hall of Fame. As this plays out, we'll see. There is always a chance that the request will be denied, but I know this person responded back to WWE that I was in. As of this moment, I'm counting on being there at the Hall of Fame to induct this person. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we will find out together, or if it's been ixnayed. I'll let you know at that juncture in time. I'll let you know after the Hall of Fame who it was that asked me, but it was a day maker for sure, someone who's had many different options, but asked me. I was really flattered, readily accepted. We'll see if that comes to pass." So indeed, we'll see if Foley is there to induct someone into the Hall of Fame, or if it didn't happen. Now, Johnny Gargano, he's set for action during WrestleMania weekend, but on the NXT brand, and he's spoken about his upcoming grudge match against Grayson Waller at NXT Stand and Deliver. Gargano has sent a firm message to Waller on Twitter, writing, quote, "Because of you, my story in NXT ended on a cliffhanger 15 months ago. You took my moment from me, and I never forgot that. I waited patiently for the right time and place. April 1st, WrestleMania weekend, I shut you up and closed the book my way. Hashtag Johnny Takeover, hashtag one more time." And indeed, Gargano will be wrestling one more time in NXT during WrestleMania weekend. Speaking of NXT, this past week was the Roadblock special on the USA Network, and per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, NXT Roadblock drew 624,000 viewers. This is up from the February 28 edition of NXT that drew 555,000 viewers. In the 18 to 49 demographic, Tuesday's special episode scored a 0.17 rating. This is also up from the week prior that scored a 0.13 rating. This is the highest demo rating for the program since the December 13 episode. NXT ranked number 13 on the cable in the demo for the night. Of course, the show featured the return of Johnny Gargano, and it featured Roxanne Perez defeating Meiko Satomura to retain the NXT Women's Championship in the main event, but then Perez, of course, collapsed due to the punishment of the bout, but that's all about a storyline. She's indeed fine. So there you go, guys. It's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.